All right, welcome. In this episode, we're going to talk about creating an assessment. So what does that look like? And we're going to specifically be creating an assessment that uses items from the test bank. So this video is not going to feature making custom questions or technology enhanced items inside the test. This is just going to specifically be, I want to use some standards-based questions that are already in here. I want to throw them in, make them a test real quick, and how do I actually get that set up? So I'm sitting on the PowerSchool assessment home screen. Don't forget, if you missed the first video, go back to it. It'll show you how I got here. But we're going to go in and say I want to create an assessment. All right, it's launched me into the assessment library tab here. You'll notice that this menu up at the top will be consistent as you're looking and working through the PowerSchool assessment system. And as you learn about what each one of them does, it'll make it easier for you to navigate back and forth between them. But in the meantime, we're going to go and say, start a new exam. It's going to ask us what we want to name it. I'm going to call this example for training. Quick key. Now, quick key, what that means is if you're doing a paper pencil version of this test, if this is a test that you're basically taking your test and you just want to make it so that you can electronically grade it and those sorts of things, you'll use quick key. Otherwise, quick key is not going to be helpful for you. So in this regard, since we're making a digitally delivered test and we're going to have it grade and everything else, a quick key is not going to help us here. But it is going to make us put it in a category. I'm going to put it in the pretest category. And it's going to make us apply what subject this goes for. I'm working in English, Standard 5 for 5th grade. Okay. Select. There we go. Start and end date. You'll notice right now it's not an approved exam, so that's because it hasn't even been created yet. So these are grayed out for you. Remove back and summary buttons from the test. I'm going to imagine that the back button is pretty helpful in most cases when you're assessing students so that they can go back and take a look through information they want to review before submitting. If by chance you do want to turn that off, now's your chance. You'll just check that box right there. Okay, I'm going to say create, and voila. We've got our test. It's showing up over here under pretest. You'll see two of them because I've actually done this once already. But I've got my first section and I'm ready to go. Let's say my first section, I want to create just some basic multiple choice questions. Okay, so I've gone down and broken down some of my items and I've gone into standards and I'm looking through these. What if this is something that I want to see? So I can hit show details. And what that does is it'll give me a little preview of what the question looks like. So read the sentence. Since Ronald's getting taller every year, he outgrows his clothes quickly. In which word does mean the same as it does in taller? Happier, inner, member, flutter. Okay. All right. I like that question, and this is one I want. So I can do one of two things. Either one, I can click. I'm going to hold my click, and I can drag it over here and put it in my test. Or two, I can right-click on it and hit Add to Exam. Okay, either way works. You can do either. So if you're not click and drag, like if clicking and dragging is too tough, no worries. Right-click on it, hit Add to this exam. I'm going to do that with a couple more items. So I'm going to say Add to Exam, Add to Exam. Okay. And let's say there's, I may have made a mistake here. The reason for that being is as I'm looking, I'm seeing these little grids. These grids mean that there's a passage or a resource with it. And I noticed that one of the resources is the Giant Gumball Guessing Game, and the other is We the People. So I'm going to actually take this question out. What I did was I right-clicked on it and hit Remove from this exam, and it's going to pull that item out. Okay, since we've got a resource item in here, now's a good time to talk about resource items. Resource items are found over here on the left-hand side. There's a resource menu that you can click on. And in language arts, you're going to find them as passages. So we're going to get into some of the passages. And I know for a fact I want to find the Giant Gumball Guessing Game here. Let's see if we can find it. There we go. The Giant Gumball Guessing Game. and then I can expand on it, and I can see that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 items related to that article or that particular resource. So I can say, okay, well, if they're going to read the giant gumball guessing game, I want to have questions related to it. I'm going to pull in some of these items. And as you're working through, if you see TEI, those are technology enhanced items, which we'll talk about in a little while. Okay, so I've got 5 questions here, and I think that's a good spot. Now, what if I feel like, okay, there's a chance that my students may need to have more than one go at this test in regards to it might take them more than just a class period to get it done. It's going to be a longer exam, and I need them to be able to hit a pause point, if you will, where they can kind of save and come back to the next day when I see them again in class. And that, in order to enable those types of things in PowerSchool assessment, you're going to want to turn on sections and put multiple sections into your test. Okay, so to add a new section, right now I've got 5 items in section 1, and I'm like, okay, you know, they can work through this, and then I want to make sure they get to a good pause point at that point. You can come to exam menu, add section, and you're going to get section number 2 now, and now I can continue to add in more items. So if I wanted to change passages, let's say we're going to do another nonfiction, but we're going to do the mystery makeover, and I'm going to pick a few items here. Remember, you can click drag, pull them over, and you'll notice it houses right underneath of section 2. I can put it under section 1 if I want to. I just bring it up into the section 1 area. Otherwise, bring it down underneath section 2. Or I can also say, oh, right click, add to exam, and it'll automatically add it in. All right, perfecto. We've got some items in here. We've got sections in here. Let's also talk about how you turn on exam test items as far as tools. Okay, so to turn on tools and those sorts of things, we are going to actually do a right click on the section itself. So if you come down and do a right click on the section, you'll see underneath this short little menu you're going to get. Be careful not to hit delete section, because that's going to get rid of the entire section itself, and that's an oopsie in itself. We're going to hit edit, selection, tools, and exhibits. Here is where you can turn on tools and pieces that students can use within this section of the test. So if you have a section of your test, let's say you're doing a math test, you got a certain section and you're like, okay, they can use a calculator here, but they can't use a calculator later on because they need to do some addition or subtraction, and that's part of the standard assessment. That's no big deal. You turn on the calculator for one part of the section, and then you can have it turned off for another part of the section. So again, another big benefit of using those sections in your PowerSchool assessment portal. So we've got things like calculator, protractor, straight edge, highlighter, compass, eraser, ruler, eliminator, and pencil. By default, guys, the highlighter, eraser, eliminator, and pencil, as well as selector, are all automatically pretty much turned on for you. So just so you know. Now, exhibits are another piece. They have more to do with like Exhibit A, and those have to do with images. There's not really any exhibits in here, but you can create your own exhibits if you need, that go along with you creating some more custom questions. So again, that's going to come about in the actual create a custom test or custom test question video. Okay. All right, I'm going to save that. And again, if I want to make sure what tools are turned on for section 2, I just right click on it, edit section tools, and I'll get that menu to pop back up. I can turn things on and off as I wish, and then save it as well. All right, one last thing that you have to do in order to get your test to where you can actually get it to your students, and that is you need to come to the exam menu, and it's about halfway down or so. We're going to hit submit and approve. It's important that you hit submit and approve. If you only hit submit, that means it'll sit in kind of like a limbo mode, if you will. It needs to be approved for it to be distributed through the testing center. And the good news is you have the ability to submit and approve these custom exams. So just be sure to click on submit and approve. All right, awesome. What if you want to demo it? What if you want to see what this test looks like before you give it out to your students? Not a problem. Again, exam menu, and you will see preview in PowerTest. Preview in PowerTest is going to launch up the browser for you, and you can literally go through the test itself, and you can interact with the questions and find out things that are going on within the test. Okay, so say begin exam. All right, there's the question. So there's question number 1. Let me see if I can get this to shrink down here a little bit so I got my next button. There we go. All right, happier. Here's the actual reading summary and everything else, and so you can interact with these items and kind of see how it works for your students. Perfect. So that gives you a little demo of the questions and the items as you get into it. So now that we've done this, couple things. One, our test is going to be found under English 5, okay, because that's the grade level that we happen to put it in those standards. So if I go, and also, in fact, it's underneath the pre-test folder inside of those standards. So when I need to go in later on and actually launch the item to my students from the testing center, that is where I'm going to have to go. Thank you for watching this episode, and I'll see you in the next one.